it's just the storyline. Can you not? Hello and welcome back to yet another video. It's been fun doing kind of a lot of reading content, kind of Christmassy reading content, and I've just been having a good time with it. Welcome or welcome back if you are new here. I'm Laura. I do bookish videos, bookish challenges, at the moment Christmas bookish videos when I talk about books, read books and do things surrounding books. So today I thought, seeing as a lot of these bookmas videos are kind of also retrospectives on my reading year, I would do a 5 best books and 5 worst books. Basically I will tell you my 5 best books of the year and then my 5 worst books of the year. It's fairly self-explanatory. So for the 5 best books, I haven't chosen like the 5 that I've rated as the highest because I will obviously talk about those in a lot of other videos. I'm planning on doing a 25 best of 2025. I'm going to do a book tag, so there's a lot of videos that like I'll talk about those books and I don't want it to get too repetitive. So instead for my best, I chose books that either surprised me because I wasn't expecting them to be as good as like they were going in, or I feel that they're underrated, or just they were just a fun time, but not necessarily like a 5-star book, but they were still really good and very impactful. They may not be like my favorite, my top 5 books of the year, but they are definitely within like my best books. And then the worst books is just gonna be books I don't like, my 5 least favorite books. So that one's pretty simple. I have the books in front of me and I'm just gonna sit here and talk to you guys about them, as we do in basically every video. We just sit here and I talk to you about books. Honestly, I feel like it's always harder for me to choose my favorite books than it is to choose my least favorite books. I've been reading for a long time, so I know my reading taste pretty well, and so I do know generally what kind of books I will like. So most of the books I buy or read are books that I'm pretty sure I will like. Obviously there are always some that are disappointing and I expected more from them, but when it comes to books I like, I mean, it's like choosing a favorite child. It is impossible to choose just one, which is why I've got the 5 best, but it's even hard to choose just 5. I mean, I have 100 books. How am I supposed to choose just 5? But we managed to narrow it down, and so I'll be talking about those 5 books today. So let's grab a nice warm or cold drink depending on your preference, and let's get on into the video. They don't really have an order. There's like, it's not 5 worst as in from worst to 5th worst, and then 5 best as in best to 5th best. It's really just these are the 5 best and these are the 5 worst. So I think what I'll do is I will still alternate, but like whichever one I say first is not necessarily like the best or the least of the best, if that makes sense. It's literally completely random. It's just depending on how they're stacked on this pile. So the first book is Iron Flame. What can I say? I'm just a girl and I love Fourth Wing, and I thought it was a really good book. But I chose Iron Flame more specifically because, like I said, I wanted to choose 5 books that I thought were underappreciated, that I didn't see enough of, or just that surprised me. I know that Iron Flame is a lot of people's least favourite in the 3 books that are currently out in the Emperine series, but I personally really liked it. For me, each book in this series got better. I think Fourth Wing was a 4-star, Iron Flame was a 4.5, and then Onyx Storm was a 5-star read for me. I loved that book. And I don't know, I feel like this book gets too much hate. I feel like a lot of people don't like it, and that's like their own opinion. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. I'm not telling you to change your opinion on this, but I personally, I really liked it. A lot of my favourite moments from like the 3 books are in this book. So this is a huge book. I think it's 800 pages. Yeah, it's just 780. So it's just under 800 pages. This is the 2nd book in the Emperine series, so it follows their 2nd year at Basgiath at Basgiath War College, which is a college which trains you to be a soldier with dragons. So it's like dragon fighting. Honestly, some of the dragons are the best characters in this book. Honestly, I thought this was a perfect 2nd book, because in the 1st book you were fully concentrated on the War College. We left it at the very end, but most of the time it was like in the War College, and I really liked how this book we got to see a bit more of the world of the universe, and I thought that was really interesting. I love world building books, and when you get to explore more and meet new characters and learn new world history, and I just thought that this book was a step up for the 1st one, and the 1st one was so good. There are many scenes in this book, I'm not going to mention them because voila, but there are many scenes in this book that I just absolutely loved, and it's just really surprising to me. I feel after I read this, I was really surprised that a lot of people disliked it because it was on the same level as Fourth Wing for me. I mean, you have the throne scene, the famous throne scene. Can't wait for the 4th book because if each book got better for me, and the 3rd book was already a 5-star read, the 4th book is just going to blow it out the park. I don't know, I thought this really set up the relationship really well, and while there was a bit of repetitiveness in Xaden and Violet's relationship. I think it was like a necessary repetitiveness. I don't know how to explain it, but for me it made sense with their characters and what they were going through to have this kind of back and forth and not fully agreeing, and I just felt it made sense in the story. Maybe if I were to reread it, I'd be like, yeah, you know what, actually this is going on for too much, but at the time I just felt it made sense, and I didn't think it lasted that long. So all in all, just to say, I really like the second book in the Emperine series, and I know a lot of people didn't. This is my first best book of the year. Now on to one of the worst books of the year. So I only have the physical copy for one of the worst books, because basically if I don't like a book, there's no point in having it on my shelf, and so I will unhaul it. And so the first book I'm going to talk about is Caraval. Caraval follows Tella and I can't remember their names. See, that's how much of an impact this had on me. I cannot even remember them. There we go. Tella and Scarlet. So basically they go to join Caraval, which is kind of like a game on an island. I was very confused as to the logistics of Caraval, because it was first described as being inside a theatre, and then you had the whole town inside the theatre, and it just confused me, honestly, the whole description of Caraval, because I read the first book twice and it was just as confusing. I didn't understand that part. Basically Caraval is kind of a magical game on a special island. You need a special ticket to get on, and whoever wins gets a wish granted. And so Scarlet's sister Tella goes and joins it because she wants to get away from their asshole father, and so Scarlet goes after her to try and bring her back. She doesn't want her father to find out and get in trouble. During the games, Tella goes missing, and so Scarlet is then trying to find her, and then we discover things. We discover like things about their past, about their mother, about them, and there you go. There are 3 books in this series, and then there's the spin-off series Once Upon a Broken Heart, which there are also 3 books. I didn't read Once Upon a Broken Heart just because I wasn't a hugest fan of Caraval, and I felt the need to. And while honestly there was nothing wrong with Caraval, I mean the story itself, despite being illogical at times, wasn't like bad. I do feel it would have been better if it had just been a standalone. I thought the first book was okay, but then the second and third books, I just didn't like them as much. I felt like the first book, I don't know, I felt like it was the second and third book went looking for like plot holes in the first book and was like, this was a plot device the whole time. I don't know how to describe it. I did enjoy Tella's point of view more than I did Scarlet, so I liked the second book more because of that, but I just thought the plot of it, especially the third book, I thought the plot of the third book was absolute batshit crazy and felt like it came out of left field. So I really feel that book series would have benefited if it was just one book. I would have enjoyed it a lot more, because I do feel the plot kind of went a bit batshit crazy. I just didn't really connect to the characters. I found Scarlet annoying, and Tella honestly, which was a shame because I did want to like them. And I also found that the conclusion wasn't satisfying, at least to me. But my sister loves that book, and like I can see how you could love it. It just was not at all a book for me. Next up we have another best book, and that is Rise for the School for Good and Evil. So basically this book is a prequel book to the School for Good and Evil series, which is technically 13 under book section, but honestly I think it's a book section that you can read as you're a bit older. I do not think that it's for younger audiences than Caraval, and I go and ask adults read Caraval. But I read it when I was younger, the original series, which is 6 books. I read that when I was younger, and then this came out a lot more recently, and so then I read this one and it gave me a craving to reread the whole entire series. So I read the original series and then I read the second book because this is a prequel duology. And I don't know, I really like what I call revisionist history, which is when someone takes a character that you already know or think you know from a book and shows their past or their childhood or even their point of view, and you realise that actually what the characters in the original book thought about their motives was completely wrong, if that makes sense, and it completely changes like your perspective on the book. So like for example what they did with the movie Maleficent, then Maleficent wasn't actually the bad guy, there was like a whole backstory to it that they didn't tell you in like the original story. I personally find it fascinating when books do that, and this book did do that. I do think though in the second book at least it went a bit too far. Like it completely changed the way you look at the original books, and not in the best way because I felt there were no hints. So sometimes revisionist history can go too far, but for the first book at least I really enjoyed it, and I just really like this universe and Soman Chainani's writing in it. I think it's really good, and I don't think it's for children. I think you can read it when you're 13 just as much as you can read it when you're 20, as I did, because I still loved it. I gave this a 4.5 stars and it was in the 13 under section at Shakespeare and Company. This book you follow the 2 brothers Ryan and Raphael. One is the evil brother Raphael and the other is the good brother Ryan, and so they're each head of one school. There's good school and the evil school. This is set hundreds of years before the original series. In the original series you learn that these brothers, one of them killed the other and became leader of both schools, but no one knows who. And so in this book you kind of get the story of what led up to them killing each other, and obviously you find out who killed who. You do also find that out in the original series, but I'm not going to say that because that'd be spoilers. And I just really liked this. It had Captain Hook in it, and I love Captain Hook, as you can tell because I read Never, I read this, and they both had Hook in them. I loved Hook in both variations. It gave us a completely new look on the world that I already loved. It was very interesting. The second book, I did not like it as much because, like I said, it went too far in its revisionist history. It was very interesting to get kind of the origin story of the original series. So yeah, I really liked this book. It was unexpected because I made myself read it because I was like, if I don't read it now, I will be too old and I won't like it anymore. And so I was like, if you read this book, you can read another book you want to read. And then I ended up loving it and reading the whole series. So clearly I wasn't too old. Okay, so another book that I did not like, and I've talked about it before, and I have no shame in disliking this book, and that is Quicksilver. It's not even that I didn't like that book, I heavily disliked that book. I was so disappointed with that book. I think it's like my lowest rated book ever. I gave it 1.75 stars, and that's just because like the idea in principle isn't bad. I went into it so excited, and I'd seen so many great things. I'd seen people say the banter was amazing, that Quicksilver was like one of their top men, and so I was like, I'm gonna love this. I'm gonna love this. I mean, banter, a man that everyone says is their top man, sign me up. And then I read it and I was disappointed and I was wrong. I do not like Quicksilver. I thought the banter was terrible. Basically, the vibe I got when reading this, and unfortunately I made the decision to annotate it. So at the beginning I have annotations about, maybe this will mean this later, or oh, this could be a plot point, that kind of like regular annotation. And then my annotation basically just merges into me insulting the book and the characters. So by the end it was literally just me writing, why the hell would they say that? This is terrible. And it was quite funny. The storyline was interesting. I will give it that. If it had been written in a different way or by a different author, I think I could have enjoyed it because I did think the storyline was interesting. But I did not like the characters very much, and I did not like the writing style. It was not for me. It honestly felt like a kind of shitty Wattpad fan fiction. And not even like the shitty that's got you kind of like, you're still enjoying it because it's just that bad, it's good. It was just bad. I mean, it's like the author was like, how many times can someone swear in a sentence, and how many swear words can I fit on a page? And I don't have a problem with people swearing. I think it's stupid when in TV shows and books you have grown-ass adults who are saying like frick instead of swearing, because no one in real life does that. And so I do appreciate when people swear in books, but like not just for the sake of swearing. But I'm not hating on you if you love that book, to each their own. It just was not for me, and I'm sad because I would have liked to like it because there's a second book that's coming out, and like I said, the plot was interesting. But I will not be continuing that series because I did not enjoy it, and they're big books. I do not want to put myself through like 600 pages of a book that I don't like in a writing style I don't like. The only good thing I did like, I think his name is Carrion. I did enjoy Carrion's character. He was the only person I liked in this book, but aside from that, the book was just absolutely not for me. Okay, next up in good books we have The Hunger Games. Let's just take a second for my lovely edition. It's like the fire edition, and so when you turn it, it looks like it's like on fire. And I think it is absolutely gorgeous. I reread The Hunger Games this year because I read Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise and the Reaping in March when Sunrise and the Reaping came out. And basically it had been so long since I read the original trilogy. I read them maybe 6-7 years ago, and so I needed to reread them just to remember, because obviously the series are all linked. So Sunrise and the Reaping, Songbirds and Snakes, things happen in there that then affect The Hunger Games, and so I just wanted to reread them with that fresh in my mind, and they are just so good. Honestly, there is a reason that people keep wanting new books to be made and the movies, and they're really well loved because they are just amazing. Suzanne Collins, she could write her grocery list and I would read it. And it's not even that she has like a magical way of writing. Her writing style, I feel, is fairly simplistic, but it's just so intelligent. The little Easter eggs that we get in each book, they're all connected. The little moments, it's literally just a throwaway sentence references something that happened in one of the other books, and I just think they are honestly the best interconnected books that I've read in my life. And I think they all have an important commentary on society and people, and I could go on about these books forever. I just really enjoyed them, and so we did rewatch the movies as well, and the movies are great. They're not as good. I mean, books are always better, I feel, but the movies are also really good. This book came out over 10 years ago, and I just feel like since there's just been nothing like it in the storyline, in the main character Candace. I think she is such a unique main female character, but I just love these books and they make me really sad. Especially Sunrise on the Reaping. That one was actually traumatic, and I would like Suzanne Collins to pay for my therapy, please, because that book did damage. These characters, they are my babies, and I love them, and I love this book. But these books are so good, and I definitely want to reread these at some point in my life. Okay, so now we have the only physical book that I owned that I didn't like, and that is How to Kill Your Family. And really my main problem with this book was I didn't like the main character, and it's really hard to enjoy a book when you do not like or resonate with the main character. If you don't like them, but you can still resonate them or see where they're coming from or respect them in some way, then that's okay. But this one, I don't know, it didn't feel like that quite in the same way. I just didn't really enjoy it, and that's a shame because I thought this book would be really fun. I mean, I've never read books about people who go on killing sprees, so I thought it was an interesting prospect, but I just didn't like our main character, and I found it really hard to get into the book because of that, because I just did not like her. I found her to be up herself, found her to be really mean to other women. I didn't like that at all. I just never was reaching for it. I never wanted to pick it up and read it, and I wasn't that invested in the story. So I think this was really more a case of this wasn't for me personally. I'm reading a new type of book. Like I said, I don't read books about serial killers, so I think it's also for that. I was trying new things, and sometimes that really works and I really like it, and then sometimes trying new things just doesn't work out, and it's just not for you. It wasn't bad objectively, but it just wasn't for me. Next up, we have Tower of Dawn by Sarah J Maas. I have talked about the other books in the Throne of Glass series, and this wasn't even my favorite book, but basically this is Chow's book, if you will, from Throne of Glass. It's the one book that doesn't follow protagonist Selena Sardothian. We follow instead Chow's point of view, and I just thought this book was really beautiful. I think a lot of people don't like the story because a lot of people don't like Chow, which is insane to me because I have always loved Chow. When I read the first 2 books like 5 years ago, I loved Chow, and then having reread the entire series, I still loved him. There were moments where, yeah, he was an asshole, but I understood where he was coming from and I still really liked him. And also I think this book is very different from the others. The others are they're very focused on Selena, obviously, so we not only have a change of main character, but I feel like the plot is also very different. So the others are quite action focused, the pacing's a bit faster, but I felt like this book was more about healing, both physically and mentally, and then learning to like build yourself back up after a traumatic experience. And so that's a lot of slower book and very different tonality than the other books. So I personally really liked that. I thought it was really cool that in a high fantasy book you have a book that's just completely focused on healing from the trauma that you've experienced in the other books, and I think it was really underrated, and I think a lot of people don't like it because it's very different from the other ones. So this to me almost feels more like a spin-off book. Like, you do need to read it to read the rest of the series. It is important. There are some plot elements that you will be completely missing if you don't read it, but it's almost more like a necessary spin-off because we're in a different world, we have almost completely new cast of characters, and I don't know, I just thought this book was really beautiful and I really liked that it focused on healing. Same as Heir of Fire, that also focused on Selena's healing, and that was my favourite book of the entire series. So I just really like when the books take a kind of slower pace and take a step back and are more character driven than action driven, because I do feel this whole series is quite character driven, but none so much as Heir of Fire and Tower of Dawn. The second last worst book is This Is How You Lose the Time War. So I also read this month. On paper, reading the blurb, it sounds really interesting, but the style of the book, the way it was written, was just really hard for me to follow along with. And it deals with time traveling, so also there was no like connection in the snippets you have of their lives. They were completely random. It was very beautifully written, I will say that. I can recognize that it was a gorgeously written book. It was very well written, but it just felt very confusing. And even though like the stories followed in a linear way, chronological, you had the letters linking them, it felt like there was no real overarching plot line, and so I just found it to be a very odd book, and it just wasn't for me. I didn't connect with it. It was very beautifully worded. There were some quotes from it. There were absolutely gorgeous, very poetic, but I just felt the storyline just really wasn't for me, and it wasn't my type of book. My last best book of the year, and that was Furyborn. I read this in February. I read the entire trilogy, so Furyborn, Kingsbane and Lightbringer. But honestly, this series just completely surprised me. It was absolutely not what I expected, but in the best way possible. Honestly, low-key a god tier series for me. I really loved it. I cannot recommend it enough. I think it's criminally underrated. I think honestly, if you like Throne of Glass, you will like this book. I think there are similar elements in the 2 books. They're also vastly different, but I think there are similar elements. Basically, this book you follow Eliana and Riel, and you follow them 1,000 years apart. So Riel is 1,000 years in the past and Eliana is 1,000 years in the future. I'm not gonna give you too much, you should really just go into this blind. The last book, I cried, I laughed, I was annoyed at the characters, I loved the characters. And I just think this book, there aren't a lot of other series like it. For a high stakes fantasy series, it managed to be unique and do something different, not just with the two timelines of 1,000 years apart, that's something I've never seen before, but also just in the general overarching plotline. It surprised me. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. Now it's one of my god tier series that I would recommend to literally anyone. But yeah, so I gave this book 4 stars. I gave the second book also 4 stars, and the last book was a 5-star book. So that is a 5-star god tier series for me. And then the last worst book on my list to talk about today is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I read Powerless at the beginning of the year, so when I read it there was only Powerless and Reckless out, so I read the first and second. I haven't read any others, don't really plan on it, and my sister had read it and she really enjoyed it. She said it was really good, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I do think Powerless is more a book that you will enjoy when you're younger. The way you read books are different, you think about them in a different way, and I think Powerless is one of those books that you should read and not think about. I just found like it was telling me absolutely nothing new. I wasn't that invested in the characters, and the second book, honestly, the second book I felt like nothing happened. The second book honestly to me could have been like the first 2 chapters in a book. Instead it got stretched out and it felt like a lot of back and forth for absolutely nothing. For them to just end up where they left off at the beginning of the book, I felt like there was not really any growth, there wasn't really any plot development. I felt the second book was completely useless. But I do 100% recognise how you can enjoy those books. They are really just a baseline, simple fantasy book. If you've never read fantasy before and you're looking to get into something easy, then Powerless is definitely a series for that. And I also understand how if you're a bit younger you could really enjoy it, because I do think it's a book that's like much more enjoyable if you're younger. I know that if I had read it maybe 5 years ago I would have loved it, I would have devoured it, but just reading it as a slightly older person, it just was not for me. And I don't think that's on the book. I think it's good that there are books that are more for younger audiences and there are books more for older audiences, because they're readers of all ages and so they all need something that will be appealing to them. But for me personally, it just was, I think, a case of wrong time. Right person, wrong time. As in, if I'd have read it a couple of years back when I was a lot younger, I would have loved it. But having read it as an adult, I just thought too much about it and didn't like it. There you have it, folks. Those are my 10 books, 5 best, 5 worst, that I read this year. I honestly had a pretty good reading year. Even the books I didn't like, they still had redeeming aspects, and honestly I'd be hard pressed to find a lot more than 5 books that I did not like, so I think that's pretty good. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget me a thumbs up on that little button there. And yeah, it was fun talking about these books, talking about different books for a change instead of my usual, you know, favourite books and least favourite books. So I hope you like this video. I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you tomorrow for the next video.